and welcome to the Knowing Show. I am your host, Christine Marie. I am so incredibly thrilled to be joined by my darling friend here, Heather. Heather, I know you. It's so funny. I know you as Heather Wags. Heather Wagenhals is your full official last name, and you
Right.
have grown up. You've
But
lived
now interviewing for husband number 3, so it could change. Just throwing that out there.
Number 3. Who's going to be the lucky winner tonight?
Let's hope he walks through that door.
Yeah, who knows? Heather, you are such a light. You are a best time selling author. You're a TV talk show host. You have emceed multiple events. You've done 3,000 interviews with 2 million views. You've been everywhere. I mean, my gosh, you're an executive. You've been a queen in real estate and investing. How have you done it all? It's so impressive, your life, and just your inner world too.
Well, it's funny because, I just early on, I watched a girlfriend of mine believe the hype of her own headlines, and she got caught up. Don't you know who I am? And nobody cared when she whipped that out as she was getting arrested. Whoops. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep my head down and I'm just going to keep going. Right. And it's, life is like eating elephant. How do you do it? One bite at a time. Right.
Yeah.
You just focus on one thing. And I'm a squirrel chaser extraordinaire. So there's a lot of things, but I just keep chipping away.
Yeah.
I just keep chipping away one thing at a time. And then when my attention starts to wane on this, I'm like, okay, I got this I can work on. Over the weekend, I just started a new cool girls card club called Slipstream Society. And we went through the canyons in Malibu. So, I mean,
I am so obsessed.
I'm just all over the place, but I have a good time, right?
And
I make sure that people around me have a good time.
You're a hunter, right?
Yes.
So tell us about that. Big game.
Dangerous game, big game. I've done television shows and I have world records. I haven't, I'm getting older now, right? So I got a little bit of arthritis, so I can't move as well. And so, the thrill of being hunted back is kind of part of that satisfaction. And part of it is also because regardless of how people feel about animals and hunting, I do it legally, I do it ethically. And the key is that I'm doing the gene pool a service because hunters aren't about eliminating things. It's about protecting and preserving wildlife for future generations. And so when you think about it from those terms, right, you have to take out those that are diluting the gene pool, right? So, we're not shooting Bambi, right?
Yeah.
That's what everybody thinks. Oh my God, you're going to kill Bambi. No, we don't want Bambi. We want Bambi's great grandpa.
Yeah. I have to tell you.
If that's what I'm quoted for the rest of my life, that's not me.
We want Bambi's grandpa. I'm pretty sure you just did still destroy some children's dreams. Pretty sure about that. Yeah. I got to tell you, it was so funny. The very first time I went hunting, I had a deer starts coming down the hill, and it was the biggest buck I've ever seen. And I was like, I'm not worthy. It's my first time hunting. And I handed the gun over and I was like, you take it. And they missed. But then the next, forever after that, every single shot that I had lined up was Bambi. And I was like, I can't kill Bambi. And that's so embarrassing to have my first shot.
I've never had a deer. I've never gotten a deer. So there we go.
That's impressive. You're getting actual big game. And I like that perspective on kind of what's eroding our environment right now and where could we kind of do without in that regard. I think that that's kind of an honorable approach to it, not to handle it with a cavalier nature. But all that to say, you're badass. And so I wanted to add that element in because when I found that out, I was like, man, you're so cool. Heather, you really work with individuals at kind of a core level to architect their authority in whatever space they're in, to really help them to be able to step into prowess of some semblance to be able to assume the authority for who they are and what they know. And I'd love to hear your perspective, of the folks you're working with right now. You're currently working with someone that I'm sure we can't really speak out to who it is, but they're about to run for a very high powered role in the government. And you've worked with many others. And so I'm wondering how much when you're encountering people who are not yet in their authority. I want to talk about the authenticity piece soon, but I want to hear, as you're helping people step into this, to this role, how do you define authority when you're helping them understand it for themselves?
If we're going to give authority a label and we're going to define it, we need to think of authority in these terms. So there's lots of people are deep in knowledge, right, about their particular area of interest. And even though I've had a zillion and one different jobs, most of my career has spent somewhere in investing or the financial markets or lending or money. It had to do with money, right? And so I've hopped all of those different careers at different times for different reasons based on whatever was going on in the economy or my life and how I needed to structure things. And the key difference between an expert and an authority is an expert is deep in their field, but an authority is not only deep in their field, but they have other ways that they can relate their information to other arenas. And authorities are where the experts go when they need a different perspective. And you would be surprised at how many people are authorities out there, and we just don't know that they are.
Because they have yet to step into kind of would you say step into the light, step into even the confidence? Like, I love the difference between expert and authority. And so to that point, authority, as you're describing it, it almost sounds a little bit more almost akin to a teacher too. They have the ability to really translate knowledge.
Well, and they're leaving a body of work. So maybe they've written multiple books, things like that. And what's the difference for folks that not many people really connect with is that even though we've had the internet for the last 25, 30 years, where we've been able to build websites and establish a web presence, especially with social media, we haven't really transformed our offline authority into a digital presence powerhouse. And I'll give you an example of that. So, quick question. So when someone Googles your name, and you may be an exception to this rule, and you'll know why as I unfold this, but when someone Googles your name or asks ChatGPT about your industry, what comes up?
Are you actually asking me if somebody was to Google my?
Yes. If somebody Googled your name, or if they asked ChatGPT about your industry, what would come up?
If they were to Google my name, it's funny, I think that that's a big piece of it is, am I actually doing the work to rank accordingly? Now I think so. I actually have a weird spelling to my name. And so that's been something where it's like, okay, let me make sure that the spelling is proper for being found. So I actually ran some branded ads at one point when I was just starting to get on stage. And so now usually it has to do with branding, marketing, and then also emotional intelligence, and hope that's the goal, right? Is that they're associating knowing a different brand name with my personal name. So am I doing a good enough job linking those two?
Well, so that's the puzzle that has to be solved. Yeah. And what I do is I work with founders, C-level executives, and politicians to help elevate their authority so they're the ones being cited, featured, and found and recommended, right? And so that's the key. And so we do this through strategic publishing and targeted media placement and digital footprint strategies that help those founders and C-level executives and politicians own their narrative. And that's the key, right? Mm-hmm. So I'll just throw this out there. If you know of someone who is a brilliant executive and they're the best kept secret in their industry and they shouldn't be, I would love an introduction, because that piece is solvable. A lot of people say, well, I have a website, I have socials. One of my clients right now, was doing all of that. She goes, I need to do more on Instagram. And I'm like, well, where are you getting your business currently? And she's like, not on Instagram. And I said, then you need to focus on that channel. Most people don't get the low-hanging fruit.
Good. Okay, so I want to just do a quick recap because I think what you're saying here, I love that you started out by defining the difference between expert and authority. And I heard it in this way. You tell me if I heard it right. The authority is almost like the next level of the expert they have a body of work. They can translate knowledge and kind of distill knowledge, the complexity of the idea. They're good at the translation of it for multiple people to understand. They also are owning their space. They're now stepping into being cited, being featured by other experts, and they're almost the go-to resource in that regard. So they're doing strategic publishing, and ultimately, they are now the ones in charge of their own narrative.
Exactly.
So that's very different than an expert. An expert is somebody who has all this internal knowledge, but it hasn't yet gotten out into the world, perhaps. I mean, there's levels, right, of expertise, but really the authority is the one who they now are the ones in charge of their narrative. And that ultimately is a real strong brand. Again, there's levels of brand. You can have a brand and be an expert, but maybe you're not well known. So I love that, Heather. That's so good. So how we do this authentically, how we do this without getting lost in the lights, and how do we do this with really being true to ourselves, but not being vulnerable and exposed and maybe airing out dirty laundry? Like, how do you guide people? I mean, this is such a dangerous path. I feel like it's a scary path, whether it's scary for people to open up and allow for themselves to take that role in the light, or it could be scary of being seen perhaps as you truly are, if maybe you don't even know who you are. Like, there's so many levels of discomfort. Where do you kind of help people understand what their levels of discomfort are and then conquer those?
It all starts with answering this one question, because when you understand this question I'm about to ask you, and you know what the answer to this question is, your authentic self will present itself naturally. You'll know the proper course. And the question is simply this: how do you want to be remembered? So how do you want to be remembered?
I love this question. When I think of my legacy, when I look back on living a life that I'm proud of, it has so much to do with the impact that's been made. And it's not necessarily so much about me, myself, making the worldwide change that frankly I want to make. It's the framework and the processes and knowing ultimately that is the thing that I've added to, that many others have contributed, that have made an impact in the world, where people are knowing who they are, showing up in relationships, businesses, communities from a place of health. So really that's a transformation. People who do not know who they are come to know who they are, walk in health, and then that cascades down and into every facet of their life, every corners of the world. And obviously that dream is far beyond my lifetime, but I'd like to play a piece in that.
And so if you think about what you just said, consider what you do for a living. Right? So you didn't say, I want to be the best project manager. You didn't say, I want to lead the construction industry. You didn't say any of that. It's a values place, right?
Right.
That's what this question gets at.
Right.
And that's where people miss the boat about authenticity, because authenticity is not authority. Right? And this word that I've seen come up with, and now I'm seeing, Chatty G using this word, performative, right?
Performative,
right? Back in the day, we used to just say going through the motions, right?
Yeah.
And what's the one thing? So I'm going to tell a little story, and then I'm going to tell you the one thing that's the decider, right? Of your choices. So I walked away from a fatal car crash a few years ago. I've had some long-lasting and quasi-permanent injuries, one of which was a brain injury. And I lost my personality overnight was totally changed because of the area that I got hit in the brain.
Wow.
And I became like the not nicest person ever on the planet. Like I was miserable. I was the only one in the car with a seatbelt on. I was the only one living in health. Like I had the world at my feet, right? Everything, all the stars were in alignment. I was doing all of these great things. And so I did not need a wake-up call, right? I was the last person in the car that needed a wake-up call. Other than the dead guy, I was the only one injured. Nobody else sustained any injuries, even though like I was seatbelted. I was planning everything right. I lived my life according to a very high standard,
Right.
by choice, not by circumstance. I don't let others drive how I live. I drive how I live. And I was so upset. And so I couldn't function. And I was mean to everybody just for their mere existence. Well, why do you get to have a fine life, right? You weren't doing all of the work, and I was just jealous of all kind of people for the silliest things. And when I sat there and I took an inventory about how I wanted to be remembered, and I listed all of the things that I used to do, I didn't realize that I hadn't done them until I made this list. And the one thing that stood out was kindness. I had lost my sense of kindness, my consideration for others. I don't know what just happened. They may be standing there taking my order for my coffee, and I may be late because I don't get to go have my triple mochaccino before I do a yoga Pilates, all kind of like power workshop exercise thing. But they just might have become an orphan, right? And they're 16. I don't know what their life is. And maybe they're on the edge, right? What if they're fighting depression or they're struggling and I'm the one that tips them the wrong way? I couldn't deal with that, right? And so if this is my only interaction with someone,
how do I want to be remembered?
I want to be that thoughtful, kind, empathetic person that met them where they are and treated them like they were gold, whether or not they were. And I had to actively work at that. I lost that. And when you think about how you want to be remembered, like the last thing on my list was, I want to be remembered for being a best-selling author. I want to be remembered for being a world record-holding huntress. No, I just want to leave the world better than I found it, right? And it starts with those daily actions of being kind. And that word performative, let's circle back to that. Going through the motions, right? If you are present in this moment, you cannot be performative, right? Because if I'm just like, I'm paying attention to what's going on over there, and I'm like, do. No. So you can be performative or you can be present. If you're going through the motions, people smell that. One of the things that I've been doing with my authority suite stuff is helping founders capture more of their time. And they don't have time to sit and do a whole bunch of videos every day to teach people, right? And they'll get to that performative place because now they just had to do 20 different scripts. So
you can't help but be performative at that point.
Right. So I have resources here in the film and television industry, and I'm helping people create a perpetual presence. So we're essentially making AI twins, and we're using Hollywood special effects to do that. So they can duplicate their effectiveness, right? And so they're very lifelike, super authentic. You wouldn't know, it's me right now, but you wouldn't know it wasn't me based on the Hollywood level quality that we can deliver with these things. And that it allows that person to still be present. And I have a client that is suffering from an issue and their surgery got postponed. And I said, we cannot film your perpetual presence twin because that pain you're in right now, I don't care how you deliver those scripts, you're hurting and it's going to get captured. So we can't do it. We have to postpone, our studio time to create their perpetual presence. And that's what I'm talking about, because you have to be present over performative. That's what is important, right? You have to be, authentic and appropriate, right? You know, I'm kind of the queen of some swear words. One of my girlfriends that it is a Heather. This is Heather. She swears like a trucker.
Oh
I'm like, what? I'm like, so that was one of the things I had to fix. Oh my gosh. Like, I swear like a trucker. And I had to start examining my language. And that was one of the things that got whacked. My inner trucker came out when I got hit in the
no. My
back.
inner trucker came out. Oh my gosh.
I'm swearing like a sailor. My mom used to say, stop that. Swearing like a sailor. I'm like, my brother could swear. He's in the army. Oh, so that gives you the right to swear. But you step that back, right? Oh, is that how I want to be remembered? Because for a while there, it's kind of the authentic Heather. But authentic isn't authoritative. Nobody wants to listen to, especially a woman, swearing like a sailor, trying to teach them something. Imagine money, right? You work so hard to create a living and to create a life, right? And whether we're talking mortgages, real estate, investing, you have an emotional attachment to that money that you made. Are you going to give it away to somebody who swears like a trucker?
Yeah. So Heather,
I want to be technically authentic, but it's not appropriate for authority.
Right. I want to ask you a couple of questions there because one, I had never heard about your story with the accident.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just a friend of mine, her husband had an accident where he lost effectively his personality. And that was it was so devastating for everybody involved, not just for the person, but for the family. And it's so hard to recover that. So how many years ago was that?
2022. So almost 4 years.
Did you feel like after that you kind of almost were starting with a blank slate? Like, who do I want to be? Let me create who I want to be. Or did you kind of recover who you once were by way of memory, or was it really through creation?
That's an interesting question. I really like that question because I missed the person I was because I thought I was fully actualized. And, I'm really deep in brain and behavior research. As you know, that's one of our big connectors, and how we operate and interact as human beings with each other, with the world around us. And the problem I kept running up against is I kept saying, why me? Why me? I didn't need a wake-up call. And then once I started getting over some of the physical pains, because I couldn't even open my eyes every day. Like my head was in so much pain. The headaches were unbelievable. I still have them now, but I've learned how to make them a friend from the great works of Jon Kabat-Zinn. And one of the things, when I was able to get a little bit of clarity and I could start functioning again, it was the perspective, why not me? Because I have all the tools and resources. I help people get their crap together when they're succeeding and they hit a wall. I'm like my own case study now, right?
Yeah,
I already have the answers, but I couldn't see it through the pain at first. The pain had to subside. And now people that have known me from both sides think I'm better than ever, right? Because it's like old Heather, but 10x or 100x. Like I'm even more, if that makes sense. And so while it was devastating, while it cost me so much in so many areas of my life is so rich right now. The people in my life, the support systems that I have, the people I've yet to meet, they're all coming to me because I was able to get straight on why not me. Of course, I was meant to have this accident. Of course, the other people in the vehicle could not have endured this. I was a passenger. I was in the back seat. I wasn't driving. I had nothing to do with it because I race cars, and so everybody's like, "Oh my God, what about your race car?" Like, it's fine. We're good. But that was like the thing, why not me? And once I was able to flip that, that's when the world opened back up. And that's
Yeah.
when I learned how to deal with chronic pain, because those are the real powerful people that you have to watch for. Those that have been injured in some way or have had some sort of an illness that's left them with a chronic pain, because those people are more powerful than they realize. And fortunately, when I was able to separate the pain from the problem and look at it a little bit different, that's when the world opened up. So I think I'm better than ever. Most people around me think I'm better than ever.
Heather, I really love that reframe, because I remember when my brother-in-law was killed, and it very much so was, why us?
Mm-hmm.
And that frame of, well, why not me? You know what I mean? Like, why am I an excuse from human suffering? Why am I, or excused from that? You know, why would I ever be eliminated just by good action? And it raises such existential questions when you really lead into it. You know, so many questions around, could you ever perform your way enough, to use that concept of performative? Could you ever perform a good enough deeds to basically protect yourself from the pain and the suffering? And obviously not. but I think that,
but we fool ourselves first, right? So we think we got it made. We're like, oh,
yes. Well, and you've got data. Obviously, when you've got people who are, you know, really unhealthy by way of, you know, eating a lot of bad food, and then maybe they have a heart attack. It's like, oh, well, you were eating. But then people who will have a heart attack who don't eat bad food. And so it's just like, life is not a prescription by any means. And there's a real humility in that, you know, and I actually wonder how much the humility and the dark night of the soul actually can be the conduit to that authenticity you're talking about.
All we have to do is take a step back and focus and pretend like it's somebody else, you know. And like what you were saying about the suffering, you know, why am I excused from it? There's two kinds of suffering in this world, right? There's needful suffering and needless suffering. A headache is needless suffering. Take an aspirin. You're not doing yourself any favors by not fixing that problem. But needful suffering, the loss of a loved one, that grieving, that's where we're not sad that they're gone. We're sad that we don't have them anymore, right? Now, what are we going to do? Now it's up to us to move on, pick up the pieces, that sort of thing. And so we get into this place, right, that we think we have to be a certain way or act a certain way. And that's where the performative starts to come in.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting, you know, I remember for my brother, I think that even that point of the losses for our sake, because I think that that's predicated on the belief in perhaps that, I don't know, for me, it's like that they are in somewhere better than here, you know, and then it's not so much of a pity that they didn't get to live their full life. Mm-hmm. Actually, there's something more on the other side. And so then, to your point, it is hope in that regard. Oh, is this your darling?
Oh, yeah. He just walked in.
Can you meet him? Will he come on real fast just to say hello?
He wants you to come on.
I've heard so much about you.
Hello.
Hello. Oh, you're so handsome. Look at you two. So good to meet you. You are on the Knowing Show. On the Knowing Show, we talk about the cultivation of human intelligences in this world of artificial intelligence. So, welcome.
Yeah, pretty soon we'll be able to tell the difference.
I know. We were just I know. Well, it's so good to meet you. Thanks for hopping on here. Your darling is just as wonderful as I would have thought. No. Well, thank you so much. It was good to meet you.
Likewise. Enjoy.
Bye. Heather, I love this because it is so interesting, where the ability of how much we can walk in authenticity versus that kind of that performative state has so much to do about even our belief system, you know, and what are the beliefs and values. You talked about authenticity and the values element there. So when we have authenticity as kind of the cornerstone and foundation of that authority, that's what staves off performative action. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, well, the key is being present.
Okay, so let's
Because
talk
if you
about that.
remember where, like, everybody wants like fancy words, and the newest buzzword and performative just seems to be the one that I've noticed over the last few weeks that has kind of cropped up. And it's going through the motions, right? So if I am going through the motions, if I'm doing something on autopilot, I'm thinking about other things, I mean, think about when you first learned how to drive, right? And you're like, and like you're scanning your instrument panel and you're like, oh, side view mirror, I got to do the rear view mirror. Oh no. And you're like, I'm trying to horizon drive, but I can't help but look at what's in front of me. And now, 20 years later, you've been driving, you're sipping your coffee, you're eating whatever, you're fiddling with the radio, you're telling Siri to change the directions. And all of a sudden you end up at your office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we do that kind of unconsciously. We're not present, right? And that's easy to do. And it's, as you know, it's what the brain does, right? Because we streamline for effectiveness, because the brain is basically lazy. So it systematizes and refines things to this place where we get to that fourth level of learning, which is the unconscious competent level, right? Where we can do things without thinking about it. And that's where that performative word comes in, right? I can sit and wax poetic about finance and investing and any of that stuff. If I'm not present with you, if I'm not paying attention to you, watching your body language, seeing how you're receiving that information, making sure that you're with me, I'm just going through the motions, right? And you'd be like, oh, wow, she's so smart. She's so great, right? But you're not connected to me. Right. Everybody talks about views, right? Oh, well, you need to go viral. You need all these views, right? So what does that really mean? Right. I've had probably, 20 million views just off of 4 different videos. How much did I sell with those videos? 0, right? Because it was just a snippet. It wasn't something that somebody could connect to.
Yes. Right.
And some of that has to do with the people that I was interviewing. I get to interview all kind of people all over the world, right? So they're not even there to see me. They're there to see like Ice-T or Rob Schneider or somebody, who knows, right? So it's all relative, right? And so we can be performative, and that's in our wheelhouse intellectually, right? It's in our authority space. But if we're being performative about it, bye-bye.
Yeah. Okay, I love this. Okay, so the presence staves off performative action. Authority, getting into that, or authenticity, getting to that point of authenticity. If you were going to encourage your clients and all of us, like 2 or 3 ways to just really hone into that authentic self, like how do you, I know kind of what I do, but how do you encourage people to come back and kind of return? Because it is easy. It's like we're outsourcing our worth or ourselves even to be a carbon copy of that which we observe in the world around us. So how do you encourage people to kind of return to themselves in some way?
Because we have to connect, right? So if we're seeking connection, it's not about what I know, right?
Yeah.
It's about what you walk away with. Communication is 100% our responsibility, not to get your point across, but to elicit the right result. Think about that. It's 100% our responsibility not to get our point across, but to elicit the right result. So if you want to get your kids to do homework, you have to be persuasive, right? It can't be about you. It's got to be about them. Right? So how do we lead them to the decision they need to make, which is do their homework, right? So that is the same thing when it comes to business, or where do you want to go for dinner tonight? Well, I want to go have Italian, but he doesn't like Italian. So how do I persuade him? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can state all the reasons why you want to have Italian tonight, but if you don't connect with that other person and make it meaningful to them, it doesn't matter. Do I have time for a quick story?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So I used to have a pickup truck when I was in college, And my brother wanted one just like it. So he goes to the dealership, and the guy's walking around and he's talking all about the features and the benefits, right? Performative at its finest. He's got his spiel memorized, and he's opening the doors and he's doing all of this stuff, and he walks around the back of the truck and he says, watch this. And so he flips the tailgate down, right? And he goes, so one of the cool features about this tailgate is, and he unhooks it and takes it off, and he goes, isn't that neat? And my brother responds to the guy, no, because that's how my sister's tailgate got stolen. So the guy did all the right things, right? He was
right.
the car, but at the end, it was a wash, right? And my brother did buy that truck, but he bought it from somebody else. He went down the street to a different dealership because that guy never asked him what was important. If that salesman was connected, if he was present, he would have said, do you haul stuff? Would you think you'd be using this bed of your pickup truck?
Right.
And he could flip it down, and then that would give my brother the opportunity. Oh yeah, he goes, no, I probably wouldn't do that. And that's how my sister's got stolen, right? So the guy could have skipped over that whole part.
Yeah.
Right? But he wasn't connected to my brother in the process. My brother still bought that same truck, but he went somewhere else where somebody paid attention to him and was present moment. And that's what our authenticity is connecting to our authority, right? Because when we're connected, people see our value, not because I can cite 1,000 facts. Right? That's not what makes me an authority. My ability to whittle those choices down based on what's important to you.
That's so good. Heather, you've talked about there's been so many different nuggets that you've shared that I just want to kind of pull back here, because that aspect of truly listening as kind of being the pathway to presence, because it really just all of a sudden it's looking you in the eye and hearing the words out of your mouth and just truly listening and almost could I repeat back not just what you're saying but also your intent? Could I actually get to the heart of what you're saying, not just the words? And I think that actually can be the best mirror of, are we actually listening to this person? And to your point around the intent and the intent to purchase, and if he had asked questions and your brother had felt known and seen throughout that time, he surely would have probably avoided that whole catastrophe to begin with. And this goes so far beyond business. It touches our personal lives and every relationship. To your point about our kids with homework, do we listen to their heart song, so to say, so that we can then communicate at that point of real connection?
For sure. It's a ratio for a reason. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I'm a professional speaker, right? And I'm a TV host. And so I get paid to talk. But it's more important that I listen.
Yeah. It's so good. I'd love to just kind of circle back to this aspect, and then we'll wrap up. I'm mindful of the time here. I know your honey's home. I just want to talk quickly about when people come to work with you, the biggest transformation that they go through is it fear? Is it maybe they don't see themselves the way that you kind of help them to come to know who they are? Is it the authenticity that's missing more often? Or is it the just packaging it all up in the right way to position them as an authority? Do they already have the nuts and bolts? And it's let's just put the package together.
This is a great question. And I've got one specific client in mind, and okay. She's brilliant. And she's just, I haven't seen someone that knows there's one other person that I know that's as deep and wide in their industry. So they know their topic, their product, their service, and they know how to connect it, right?
Yeah.
And the biggest transformation was that she was just seeking somebody to validate she was on the right path. She's been pushing and pushing for years. And she believed in herself, and her circle wasn't supporting her because she was unable to articulate what she needed from the people.
Wow, that's so huge. That's so huge. Honestly, I feel that, Heather. I feel that so much. I will have people ask me on a regular basis, how can I help you? And I'm like, nothing. Like, I don't articulate it. So I feel that, and it's wild. I can only imagine just how far she was able to go as a result of just knowing how to speak that out and even clarify it, probably even for herself, you know?
Lost you. I can't hear you now.
Oh no. Am I out?
Oh, is that why?
Yeah, you're connected to your computer for some reason. Turn off Bluetooth. Just kill Bluetooth.
Okay, hang on one second.
We got
Oops,
this.
we're having an issue here. I can't see. That's my problem. Oh, there we go. Hang on. Up there. I can't see where it is. Where is it? Bluetooth, there it is. Okay. There we go. All right. So I missed that last little piece.
I was just honestly, I was just commiserating with the woman that you helped over that aspect of not being able to articulate.
Well,
knowing
she's got
how to express what you need.
She's got a bestseller. She already had a best-selling book before she got to me. That's the interesting thing. So now we've got another book coming out for her in her lane, dialed in. And she's only been speaking professionally for like a couple of years. And she's already landed a TED Talk. She's doing it in July.
Sure. Heather, that's so exciting. It's, you know, it's wild. Like the art of what you're able to do. It's interesting. You know, we're talking about authority and authenticity, and you've really given some interesting aspects on like the pathway to be able to operate in both of those places. Presence is the antithesis and the solve for being performative, which ultimately that steals from our authenticity. And then listening is really what breeds, or it really breeds that connective tissue in relationships. And then that's also what allows for that. You can be authentic, but if you don't know how to listen, it doesn't really matter. So that's kind of like the pathway to perhaps even the authority, so that people can really understand you and feel seen in response and in regards to what you're saying. So wonderful, my friend. How can people learn more about you?
They can find me at heatherwagenhals.com. If they're looking to expand their authority and they just want to take that first step, then just go to elevatedstatemedia.com and they can download blueprints on the different authority pieces that we work with. And then there's a third website, positioningwins.com, which is my new female-focused book and leading people to claim their already established greatness.
Wonderful. I love it. Well, I'm grateful. I'm excited to see you next week in LA. That'll be
Yay! I know, we're going to hang out. It'll be so great.
It'll be so fun. Thank you so much for coming on here tonight. I'm so grateful for you. And y'all, thank you so much for joining us here on The Knowing Show. I will see you tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. And thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Heather. Grateful for you, my friend.
Bye-bye.